All right, welcome everyone. This is going to be module 2, lecture number 2. And in this one, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about VIM. And specifically, I wanted to really touch on these commands that I talk about a lot. And some of the ones that you're going to be needing to know for this course. So what I went ahead and did is that for this course, I went ahead and highlighted, and I'm going to upload this. These are the commands that you are going to be responsible for, not only for the project, but also for any of the quizzes, the midterm, and or the final. So if you can know how to do these commands here, then you should be golden in regards to being able to get a really good understanding of VIM, okay? So what we're going to do right now, I'm going to go ahead and go into a couple things. So the first thing we're going to talk about is I'm going to go ahead and talk about a command. Let me go ahead and I'm going to throw this up there on the board, on my whiteboard. So the first command we're going to talk about, and if you notice on my left, I have this is I would say a template of what I use to go ahead and help give information. So let's go ahead and actually talk about this. So the first one we're going to learn command-wise is going to be called CW. And what this stands for is this is going to be change word. And when we change the word, so we're going to use the change word command, and we're going to use the very beginning. So you're going to notice at the very, very top, I have this information right here, okay? As you can see, I have a couple of misspellings in this document. Intro is spelled, the O has a 0, the commands has a 5 instead of an S, and then I apparently just must have been asleep. I mistyped my name. So let's go ahead and actually fix this. So to do this, we're going to type in CW. So we're going to type in CW. C, notice that it's writing it right here. CW. And it deletes that actual word. And now I'm going to go ahead and type in intro. We're going to do the same thing over here and do, now notice I'm in insert mode, okay? Now, how do I go ahead and get out of that? I have to go ahead and hit the escape key. And now I'm back in command mode again. And I'm going to do CW again, commands, escape, and then CW again for James. Okay? So far, so good. Change word, not a big issue. Now, I don't like the way this actually looks. I don't like writing my dates like that. Okay, let's say I decide, you know what, I don't want that to do that. Well, we have another command that's actually called CC. And we can type in CC. And what this does is it's gonna change the line. And what that does is it blanks it out. Let's say that, you know what? I just found out that I don't need to include the date for this document, right? So I can go ahead, I'm in the command mode, okay? I'm going to type in CC. Notice again, it's starting right here. My cursor's right here, C, and I'll hit C again, and deletes it, and throws me into insert mode. I'm like, okay, well, I don't need the date. Cool. So I can actually go ahead and delete an entire, or change the line and blank it out, and then I can then edit it into what I want, or I can just, it removes it, okay, altogether. Now, we do have what's called a search function here. And then it's going to be search and then string. And this is how we can search for forward for words or phrases. Actually, we're going to say just words, okay? So let's say, for example, I want to find where the word intro is. Or let's say only, okay? So notice I have the / right here, and then I have string. Now you're not going to type out string. String is a word that we use to go ahead and signify a string of characters, okay? So I'm going to type in / and let's say I want to find the word test. Okay, now notice what happens. It highlights this one and this one, and if I hit enter, it goes to this one first, and I hit enter again. Oh, sorry. If I hit the end key, so end, goes forward. Okay, so we had this idea that we can do, we can actually do searches. Now, I noticed that it didn't pick up these right here, right? It didn't pick up any of these because when you're searching, remember, case matters. So what happens if I change it from lowercase test to uppercase test? Okay, notice it highlights all that information. So I hit the enter key and I just do and you can notice that my cursor is moving through the other ones. And it tells me when I hit the bottom and then it actually goes back up to the top again, okay? So that's how we go ahead and do searching. Now, let's say, for example, you don't know, let's see, I want to go ahead and say, you know what? I know that this is, let's see, this is a total of 23 lines. And let's say I find out that, you know, I want to work on line number 7, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to do it a little bit differently. So we're going to do colon N, or you can do N capital G. And it says go to line N. So we're going to do it both ways. So I'm going to go ahead, we're going to, for the example, we're going to go ahead, example, let's go ahead, we're going to go to line 7 and then line 20. So the first time we're going to use this one for line 7, and the second time we're going to use this right here for line 20, okay? So I'm going to type in, I'm in command mode again. Remember, I hit the escape key. I'm in command mode. Notice there's nothing here. I'm going to hit the colon. N signifies the variable for the line number, and we're going to do line number 7. So colon 7. Oh, sorry. 7. Now notice where I'm at. I'm at line 7, character 1. Okay. Now we can do the same thing and go to a different line by going to the number and then capital G. So let's go ahead and exit. We're going to do the number 20 and then capital G. And notice where it throws me. I'm now at 20. So row 20. And then I'm at character column 1. So that's how we can go ahead and jump to a line. You'll learn how to jump to a line and you'll practice with it because you'll have to do that either for the midterm, the final, or the project, okay? Now, the next command we're going to talk about is like, okay, cool. Let's say I want to delete some lines, okay? Let's say I don't need this information anymore. I'm going to delete it. So here's actually where we can go ahead and do a delete function. So we have 2 different ways we can do DD or NDD. So we already talked about the N key and how we can use N. N usually signifies a go-to line. So it's a variable saying go delete this many or go to this line. So it works the same way when it comes to delete. So this is how we delete a line or N lines, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and come over here and I'm gonna go to test A, right? I'm gonna hit DD and notice again, the first D here, second D again, and notice that now test AA is gone. It's deleted. Now, I can undo this, and the undo command is U. U stands for undo. So I'm going to go ahead and undo what I just did. And now test AA is back. All right. So now let's actually do NDD. Let's say I don't want to do, let's say I don't want to do one line, which is DD, right? One line is DD. So DD, this is for one line. This one right here, NDD, this is for multiple lines. Okay. Let's say I want to do multiple lines. Cool. So how do I do multiple lines? Well, instead of actually typing DD, we're going to type the number of lines I want to delete plus DD. So let's say I want to delete 3 lines. So I'm going to put 3. So notice I have a 3 right here, D. And if I add the last D, Let me do that again. Sorry. Do that one more time. 3 DD. Now notice it dated 3 lines, and it even tells you 3 fewer lines. So you actually deleted the lines, okay? So I'm not going to undo that. I'm just going to go ahead and keep rolling with the punches. So the next thing we can do is we can also delete words. Let's say I don't want this word here. I want to delete a word. So let's go ahead and actually do delete word. So this is going to be DW. This stands for delete word. So I can come over here and let's say I don't want test. I want DW. And notice I hit DW and it deletes test. I'm going to undo that again. Okay. And again, notice D. There's a D right there. W. And it deletes the word test. So that's how we go ahead and delete a specific word. Now we can also delete a number of words. So let's say, for example, I want to delete, this whole thing right here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 words. So let's come down here and we're going to go ahead and do DW, but it's going to be very similar to this one. We're going to delete a word, tell them how many words I want to delete. Okay, so delete n number of words. So far, so good. So I want, sorry. I want 4 words. So I'm going to type in D. 4. 4 is the number of words I want deleted. And then W. And notice it deleted all of them. But it didn't delete the period. Why? Because the period technically counts as a word in Vim. Okay? So if I want to get the period, I have to go ahead, I'm going to undo what I did, hitting the U key again, use the U to undo. And notice again, I'm in command mode. I'm not an insert, I'm not in visual, I'm not in replace. I'm in command mode. So I'm going to do this again. But instead of D, so we did D4, example, we did D4W. We're going to do another example, which is going to go ahead and be D5W. And just so you can see the difference. So we're going to do D5, and then notice it's right here, and then W. And notice it deleted, once I did that, it deleted the period because the period is also a word, okay? So we talked about how to delete words, how to delete multiple words, how to delete lines, how to delete multiple lines. So let's go ahead and actually talk about now, what if I want to get rid of the whole sentence? Let's say I don't need that whole sentence. Well, we can do that. We can delete the entire sentence, and we can do that by doing this. So we'll type in, there we go, D, and then the right side parentheses. This is delete till end of line. Sorry, end of sentence. There's one to end of line too, that's the DD. So we have, this is only a test, right? I want to delete that sentence because it's not important to me. So I'm going to type in D, and then I'm going to type in the right parentheses. And notice it deletes up into the period. So if you have a run-on sentence or anything, let's just go ahead and I'm going to just show you real quick down here. So I'm going to go ahead and just type a bunch of characters. Let's see what happens. Okay. So we're going to do delete to the end of the line. Why is that? We had semicolons in there and everything else. Why didn't it do that? Because a semicolon, first of all, is not an ending of a sentence. The three main endings are going to be your periods, your question marks, and your exclamation points. So if you don't have those kind of endings, it's not going to go ahead, that's not going to be the end of a sentence. So it's not going to know to delete that sentence, okay? So delete end the sentence. Now we can also delete characters. Let's say, you know what? I only deleted that one word. I don't want to go ahead and do that. I can delete characters by just hitting the X key. The X key allows me to delete characters. So I think, you know what? I want to clean this up. I'm going to get rid of that DD. I'm going to hit the X key, and the X key again. Deletes the character. Perfectly fine, no issues, and that's how we delete the characters. So now the next thing is, well, how do I, now we talked about, think of deleting like cutting, but it's not really cutting, it's deleting. So there's actually another way we can do, which is called cutting or copying, and this is called yanking in VIM. So we have the term yanking. So to yank an actual line of text, this is going to be YY. So like DD is to delete one line. This allows you to go ahead and yank. So we're going to do NYY to go ahead and yank multiples. So this is again this is to copy one line. Or we can do NYY, and this allows us to copy N lines or copy multiple lines. Okay, so we can do NYY or YY, and these is copy, and then copy A line or N lines. And the example I'm going to use for this one, we're going to be copy, we're going to do yank yank, okay? And then we're also going to do a 5, actually we'll do 6 yank yank. So those are the examples. Let me click out of here. There we go. All right. So I'm going to move my cursor. I'm going to yank. And it doesn't look like much, but if I hit yank, and what this does, I do want to go ahead and stress this. This puts the information in the general buffer. And that's important. I'm going to highlight that because there are multiple buffers that we can use. This puts it in the general buffer. No, 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 we're not doing that. No, all right. So just know that this puts it in the general buffer. All right. So I put that there, general buffer, because there's a difference between general buffer and then we can actually specify a specific buffer, and I'm going to talk about that just a little bit. But so this is in the general buffer. So we're going to yank this. We're going to yank test EE. And notice I put the Y right there. I'm going to hit the Y again, and the command goes away, and it says, hey, I yanked it. So now you're like, okay, well, I've copied this data. Well, how do I go ahead and paste it? So I'm going to type the word P for paste. Very, very, very simple. So I'm going to come over here to the very bottom. I'm going to type in P. And notice where I put test EE. It puts right there after the cursor. Okay. So now we go ahead and actually try multiples. Let's go ahead. We're going to do 6. So we did YYs. Now we're going to do 6 YY. So I'm going to go back up to the top right here where it says test. I'm going to type in number 6. Remember, it's right there. 6 YY. And notice it says 6 lines yanked. So that means you've copied 6 lines. So I'm going to come down here. And then again, it copies it to the general buffer. So I'm going to paste from general buffer. Okay. I'm going to go ahead, it's going to paste in general buffer. So I'm going to hit the P, and there's my information right there. So we just went ahead and copied 6 lines, and we pasted 6 lines. All right, so far so good. Now, I said there's a general buffer, right? Well, there actually is also multiple other buffers too. So when it comes to buffers, I'm going to go ahead and real quickly, I'm going to come in here. So actually, I'm going to bring this over this way for just a little bit. So when it comes to buffers, so there's in buffer for VIM, not buggers, there's buffers, right? And within buffers, there's something called the general buffer. And then there's actually the specific buffer. And you're like, well, what is the specific buffer? Well, let's say I'm working with a bunch of data and I don't want to lose what I copied or yanked. Because when you write stuff to the general buffer, it's like you're copy and paste in Word. It overwrites it over time. So every time you copy something new, whatever you had before is lost. You can't recover it. So how do we fix that? Well, we can actually do what's called a specific buffer. And when we do that, we can go ahead and say, hey, here's a quotation. We're going to say quotation, specify the buffer, and the buffer specified is going to be sorry, from A to Z. So you can specify any buffer from A to Z, and then N, yank, yank, okay? So this is going to go ahead and be a specific buffer. So I'm going to move back over here. And notice the difference between this, we're typing it in here. And to be able to do this, we have to put double brackets. Oh, sorry, not double quotation marks. So let's go and do that. So this means we're going to go ahead and copy N number of lines to a specific buffer. And so we're going to use buffer number A. So for the example, we're going to go ahead and use buffer A. We're going to copy those same 6 lines, and then we're going to copy those same 6 lines. So let's go ahead and see how this works. So I'm going to come over here, and I got these right here. These are 6 lines. So I'm going to hit the double quotation mark. Notice it's right there. So double quotation mark. Assign this to buffer A, and then copy those 6 lines. So notice what happened. It yanked 6 lines and it placed them in buffer A. Cool. So now if I know I did this, I can also then, if I know that all this data is in buffer A, I don't have to worry about losing it. I can go ahead and paste it just like I did here. So we can paste from a specific buffer too. So we're going to go ahead and do from A to Z, paste. So paste from a specific buffer. Okay. So let's go ahead and paste from a specific. So I'm going to do double quotation marks. Choose the buffer where I stored my data, and then hit the P, and there you go. There it is again. There's all 6 of them, posted 6 more lines. Cool. That's what I wanted to know. All right. So there's 2 more commands I'm going to go to. The first command is going to be called the join command. It's going to be capital J. This joins lines together. And I have the good examples. Let's say I want to combine these lines. Okay. Linux is a kernel. Well, I could go ahead and go into the insert mode and delete and all the new lines that were created, but I don't have to do that. I can just come over Linux and just type in, we're going to type in capital J. And look what happens. It pulls the previous line and says, hey, that doesn't exist anymore. And it joins the previous line to this one. So let's do that next one. Oh, look, it does the same thing. And there you go. So again, we're doing capital J. Notice it's capital J. All right. Now, lastly, let's say I only need a small piece of this information, right? Let's say I only need the first 3 lines. Honestly, let's go ahead and say I need the first 10 lines. So how do I go ahead and get the first 10 lines? Well, I want the first 10 lines, and I want that to be its own separate document. I don't have to go ahead and I can do a yank, put into a buffer, and then go back and paste it. I don't have to do that. I can actually go ahead and do what's called a select. I can have a selection for my yank. So I can go ahead and do what's called a selection yank. So we're going to do N1, comma, N2. And then we're going to go ahead and write those actual lines. So this is going to be line 1. So this is line 1, or first line. I don't like using first line because then y'all may confuse yourself with first line. Or starting line. There we go. Starting line. N2 stands for end line, ending line. W, okay? And then I'm going to give it a file name. Whatever that I want to name the file. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. I want the first 10 lines. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You know what? Let's do 11. Let's do 11. Just so we can have, like, you know, all this right here. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before. So I'm starting with the starting line where I want my cursor to start at. I want it to start on line number 1. So I'm going to do colon, like I have here, colon, starting at line number 1, comma, go down to line number 11, write this data. I'm going to go ahead and make this a copy. It's going to be intro to Vim copy. So notice it says intro to Vim copy. That's the new document, and it wrote 11 lines and 95 characters written. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and say, well, how do I go ahead and check that? Well, let's go ahead and exit out of here. Remember, to exit, you hit the Q. But remember, I made changes. It says, hey, do you want to go ahead and override those changes? I'll be like, yeah. I don't want to say what I did. I don't need to. And now let's go ahead and see. Notice I have now the actual file called intro to Vim copy. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. It's exactly what we copied, those 11 lines right there, okay? So this is actually some of the beginning you need to go ahead and be able to be familiar with. We talked about how to insert, how to append, how to do visual blocking, stuff like that. But these are some of the commands that you need to become familiar with throughout the course, okay? So that being said, that's the end of this video. I hope you actually enjoy it and it's very helpful. If you have any questions, again, please email me. And if not, I'll see you in the next video.